Hey, we got Tommy back. Let me make sure he's still here. Hold on, Tommy. Yep, there he is.
I am, Jason. Sorry about that.
Tom, no worries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pause on the new guy intros, and let's get Tommy in here and hear his story, and then we're going to start back up with Matt Kaslik once we've heard from Tommy and got to ask him some questions. So Tommy, you ready to tell us your bit?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier, but you know, I got a chance to. This is a great thing you're doing, Jason, by the way, and all the guys that are participating. So I saw you had Ruben Brigady on last week, so you kind of hit the top end of the class, and thanks for slumming getting me on this week to get all of us guys who are on the bottom portion of the class. I do appreciate that. But hey, going to what Jason asked me to speak about a little bit. So I'm active duty. I'm an 06 supply officer, currently in command down at DLA Distribution Center, Norfolk, Virginia. And we've had like everybody in the military, we've been reacting to what COVID-19 has been bringing us. So I think what sparked Jason's interest on this, we got about 5 days of notice to get the Comfort underway and up to New York City, and it culminated in Secretary Esper and President Trump coming down to Norfolk Naval Station to kind of see her off. So just a little bit of background with that mission in particular. So again, I'm commanding officer of DLA Distribution, Norfolk, Virginia. So think about us as kind of the Amazon of the DoD, right? So hub and spoke supply chain network. We've got about $4.4 billion worth of inventory. So those that you may be familiar with FISCs back in the day, really what the distribution centers do now, with the exception of food, is all that supply chain management for the Navy, for the one in Norfolk anyway. So we've got 156 ships that we take care of. We process all the material coming in. If a sailor orders a widget in Bahrain, we utilize our ocean terminal and put it on a cargo ship and get it to them. So all of that. So anyway, Comfort, who's home ported in Norfolk, and Mercy, who's home ported in San Diego, decision was made. FEMA working with WHO and really Homeland Security and ultimately MSC and Fleet Forces Command. They said, hey, we want to take these 250-bed hospital ships and turn it into a 1,000-bed operation. So that was more than just, so we started gutting this ship, right? So this wasn't me, this wasn't my organization, but the Navy and MSC started gutting the ship, taking out all of the gym equipment, for example, all of the, the MWR stuff, some of the stuff that were traditionally on domestics, and started bringing in 750 more beds. Well, from a supply perspective, it's not just 750 more beds, right? It's all the supply materials, medical materials and medical supplies that are needed to turn a 250 patient operation into a 1,000 patient operation. And so we're trying to do this as the coronavirus is just spreading like wildflower, in the United States and across the globe. So your medical supply chains were essentially dried up. So DLA, who's the largest buying organization that we have in the government, was getting, everything that we could get, from ventilators to surgical masks to just name it, general supplies, right? Food, all of that to try to gear up to get her out of there. Now, Comfort in particular, so Mercy went first. Mercy left San Diego, and there was a little back and forth. At first, she was going to go up to Seattle, to the Pacific Northwest, and it was ultimately decided that she would go to Los Angeles. So she left first, and she was a little bit more ready to go because Comfort was in a maintenance availability. They were at the tail end of it, so they were Pier 8, Norfolk Naval Station, literally right, look out my window and you just right across from where I am. But she had about 4 more weeks left to go in her avail. And there was just a ton of back and forth that they could get her out. If they got her out, they'd have to do a shakedown availability to kind of, make sure everything that was fixed. Because she had come back from a South American deployment in November timeframe. So the Navy and industry worked like crazy to get her out. They got her out. We're loading the ship like, you wouldn't believe. So my organization, so about 700 people in what's called DDNV. So wherever you see DD and then two other letters, it's Defense Distribution, and NV is Norfolk, Virginia, right? JF, Jacksonville, Florida, CP, Cherry Point, or CN, Cherry Point, North Carolina. So you get the city and then you get the state. So DDNV, we're loading like, crazy to get it there. So we probably did about 360 pallets worth of material in 5 days, which normally we wouldn't do. My workforce, these 700 people, these aren't telework people, right? This is touch labor. These are forklift drivers, or truck drivers, or hazmat material handlers. They are pick, pack, and stow, package, receipt, stripping containers. So only about 11% of my workforce is telework. So we were kind of dealing with this mission set in an environment where notionally, a lot of people are anxious, right? My workforce also, about 50% of my workforce is over the age of 50. So it's largely civilian, not contractors, government civilians. And what the DoD did is they have what is called a weather and safety leave that's going on right now. So if you are high risk due to chronic illnesses, everything that ranges from high blood pressure to lupus to chemo, you could essentially opt out and get free leave. So I know there's a lot of background here. So March 13th, the governor of Virginia shut schools for the remainder of the year. So really a lot of these people had no one to watch their kids. I hate to say it this way, but that's the way it was. So then you throw in this pandemic and, my folks can't really stay home and telework. They got to come to work. And so I had about 50% of my workforce that went out on this leave, which we really couldn't question. If somebody self-identified as high risk, we couldn't question it. We weren't allowed to ask for medical documentation, because I deal with unions and all this stuff, and it was what it was. So I got about half my workforce. We've got this mission. We get told by FEMA, hey, you have 5 days to get all this material and load it. And so the way that got done was, I've got a great team. So it's kind of funny. The people that stayed at work were probably the people that you wanted to be at work, if you know what I mean, right? So they just got after it. We worked around the clock, literally, 2 shifts and then an overtime shift through the night. And we just loaded that ship and just, everything that you could think of to put on that ship, we put on that ship while they're kind of gutting the ship. And then the other thing is about these hospital ships, which are converted oilers from back in the day. They only have a crew that stays on a ship of about 100 to 150 people that are all ship's company all the time, right? So they were loading about 800 to 900 new crew members. So normally MSC gives them about 90 days to do it. So you have all these people coming on, you got stuff coming off the ship, and then you got me and my guys, literally humping boxes up the brow, right? That's kind of if I could paint the picture for you, we got cranes going, the ship's crane, pier crane, bodies, working party bodies moving stuff up, we're loading food, and they're getting 800 new crew members all within about 5 days. Right. So it was an impressive effort. So then to make matters maybe a little more challenging, on Thursday, I get a call from MSC, and then we get on the horn with the White House, and they say, hey, President Trump wants to come down on Saturday and say goodbye to the ship. And the ship's got to leave by 2 o'clock because he's got to be back at the White House for, this thing. So all of a sudden, now we've kind of got that to deal with. I will say this. The White House, the president's office, his Secret Service agents, all of that, they were adamant that his presence would not change the mission in terms of getting that ship loaded and getting her out of there to get up to New York City. So they were really great to deal with. So my building is Whiskey 143 on a naval station. If you see, it's a big, huge building on base. So unlike Friday night, I'm a supply corps officer, right? I'm on the roof of the building with the friggin' snipers, and they're like, well, can we go here? Can we go there? Right? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong cat, fellas. But yeah, I think this looks good, right? So, it was fun. That part, watching them gear up for this operation with the president coming was fun. So they took my command conference room, and that was like, White House comms, satellites and all this stuff. And they got everything set up, and they were actually a real joy to work with. So Saturday comes, again, we're working, every day. I mean, it's been probably about 22 straight days that we've been working since this all hit. And, we're literally loading things as the motorcade is coming onto the base. So he came in, Air Force One, over at the air station on base. He flew right in on base. Secretary Esper, Secretary of Defense, was with him. SecNav was coming down, but he ultimately did not. And then he was busier later in the week, as we all know, right? So they get there, the motorcade's coming, and we're still humping stores on the ship, right? It's kind of like when Disbo is standing the brow watch when you're leaving the, foreign port. They're like, Disbo, pull the friggin' brow. And you're like, well, still trying to pay the husbanding agent, right? I mean, that's what this thing felt like. So we're doing it. The president was incredibly grateful. I got yanked into the tent because Admiral Grady, who's Fleet Forces Command of 4-star, there was one more truck of narcotics that we were trying to get on board, and he wanted to know exactly where it was. And I would say, so I spent a couple of minutes talking to the president. He asked some questions. He was generally really, really intellectually curious how we did it, right? And Pier 8 on Norfolk Naval Station, it's the only covered pier, right? So if those of you that aren't familiar with it, there's 24 different piers on the base, and Pier 8's kind of right in the middle. It's halfway between the destroyer piers and the carrier piers, and it's covered, right? So it's normally where MSC ships tie up. And the president was really kind of curious how it all worked and how it happened. And when you hear him, when he was speaking, I mean, he loves it. He's a classic New Yorker, but he loved the size, right? He loved the size of the operation, and he was very curious how much stuff we got on board. So kind of more and big and, fully stacked. And he said it in his speech, and you could tell when he went off script, because he's like, and I drove past those carriers, and they are massive and they're lethal, right? And, it was neat, but it was a great morale boost for my folks because, they could really see what they were doing. And Terry Gabriel, she's the suppo on board, Comfort, I'm in comms with her daily. So, and I'm sure people all know this by now, but she went up there, and again, she's right outside, she being the Comfort's on 90th Street in Manhattan, right outside the Javits Center, and her mission was to treat non-COVID-19 patients. And unfortunately, some of the folks that came from the hospital that had tested negative, and that's the thing about these tests, right? They're a snapshot in time. They had tested negative. They left the New York City hospitals to go on board the Comfort to be treated for, back surgery, recovery, or whatever it is. And they had about 5 patients that came in and then became symptomatic and tested positive. And then shortly thereafter, we had a host of doctors and nurses that have tested positive on board Comfort. And so that mission has changed from non-COVID-19 to the whole gamut, right? And they're trying to isolate wings. And I suspect it's going to become an operation that is just treating COVID patients at that point. So it's been every single day. So when that mission changed, there's actually different PPE that they need for a COVID environment than a non-COVID environment. So we had to send 50,000 different masks up there yesterday. And again, the global supply chain for this stuff is challenging, right? Just like you guys trying to buy, or us trying to buy things for our families that have anything medical related, trying to buy it at that type of economy is tough. So that was the mission. That I kind of posted about it in Facebook and had a video in there and some pictures of my folks who really, that was a kind of a morale booster for them, because it's been hard, and these people, their parents, right? They have kids that are home, and they're coming into warehouses with a lot of people not social distancing and have to come to work, right? A lot of them are caring for elderly parents. A lot of them, most of my workforce are veterans, so they've got some form of, health issue or a disability thing. And I couldn't be prouder of really them and the work they're doing. I'm just a coach, right? I get to coach them up and hey, let's get after it. Here's the mission. This is what we want to do. And their courage and their grit, and not just getting Comfort to see on that Saturday, the 20th of March, but really every day thereafter, because it's tough. We found out 2 days ago that we were going to be the distribution center for thermometers for the entire fleet, right? Everywhere. So we got, thousands and thousands of thermometers are coming in because now on base, you've got to get a temperature check as you walk into a building. We're not at HPCon Delta, we're at HPCon Charlie, which is that next step. But, it's tough. It's tough times right now. And again, it's a little bit different with young sailors because they're young and they feel invincible and all of that. But when you're talking about a government workforce that half of it's over 50, they have other life concerns and things outside of work and people outside of work that they're worried about. So couldn't be prouder. All right, I'll stop talking for a little bit, Jason, but I couldn't be prouder. It was a great mission. At least it was cathartic in a sense that I felt like we were doing something to move the ball down the field. Right? Like it felt good to watch that ship get to sea at 2:00 on Saturday the 28th, as was told to us must happen, a week prior. And, so a lot of awards for my folks. I'm throwing cash at them, whatever I can do, because I can't have too many go home or we're in trouble because not only do we have comfort in that, but we have the rest of the fleet that we provide all the supplies for. So, deployers right now look like they're not coming home. Right? If you're a deployed ship right now and you're essentially self-quarantined in the middle of the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean or wherever it is, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to pull her back into Norfolk, Virginia or Mayport, Florida or San Diego, right? So, there's a supply chain issue here that we're trying to work and get after. But I'll pause now, Jason. I know that was a long time talking. So
that's why you're here. That's why you're here. Thanks for that. I mean, that's just a remarkable story. I could just imagine the circus, and then the president's coming. So, oh my God.
Yeah.